All right, welcome to this explainer. Look, we already know Taiwan is the geopolitical flashpoint of the century, right? But today we're really unpacking the sheer, terrifying fragility of the thread that's currently holding our entire global economy together. It's a situation that combines high-stakes geopolitics, bleeding-edge technology, and, well, a rapidly ticking clock.
Let's kick things off with a number that, honestly, pretty much dictates modern human civilization: 90%. TSMC doesn't just have a large market share, they have a complete structural bottleneck on the world's most advanced sub-5 nanometer computer chips.
Which, of course, forces us to ask the ultimate chilling question of the 21st century. What happens if the factories in Hsinchu suddenly go dark? There's this deep, terrifying irony that humanity's entire digital future relies completely on a single industrial park. So, what actually happens to the global economy if this one critical gear just stops turning?
Part 1, the most important island, the global chip monopoly.
To really wrap your head around the scale of this monopoly, think about the rest of the entire world producing just a tiny 10% fraction of the necessary supply. Every single artificial intelligence chip powering massive models like ChatGPT, every advanced F-35 fighter jet, every data center, and yeah, the smartphones sitting in your pocket right now, they all rely on that massive 90% slice of the pie, manufactured exclusively in Taiwan.
Because of this staggering dependency, this incredibly unique dynamic emerged, and it's functioned for decades as the island's strategic insurance. Analysts call it the Silicon Shield. It's basically the ultimate geopolitical insurance policy. Make yourself so utterly indispensable to the world that destroying you would mean destroying the modern era itself. You're just too valuable to invade and way too essential for global superpowers to let fall.
And here's the crucial part. You literally cannot just copy and paste these factories into Arizona or Germany and call it a day. Replicating this ecosystem is roughly on par with the complexity of space travel. It's this impossibly delicate web of international engineering. It requires extreme ultraviolet lithography machines from the Netherlands, specialized materials from Japan, and critically, 4 decades of deeply specialized human expertise that simply cannot survive wartime conditions. Even with billions of dollars pouring into the U.S. CHIPS Act, we're talking years, if not decades, to truly replicate this capability anywhere else.
Moving into part 2, the 2027 countdown. What intelligence actually knows?
Back in early 2023, then CIA Director William Burns made a public revelation that kind of changed the conversation entirely. Read as a stark warning, this intelligence assessment isn't a guaranteed invasion date. Officials are very careful to clarify that, but rather, it's a terrifyingly close deadline for Chinese military readiness. It means Beijing wants the capability to successfully take the island by 2027, whether they actually decide to pull the trigger or not.
But look, we aren't just sitting around waiting for 2027. This escalation, it's happening right now, in real time. China has completely shifted from sporadic brinkmanship to a sustained drumbeat of massive military drills, explicitly rehearsing blockades. The progression is super clear, moving from joint sword operations simulating battlefield seizures right up to the massive justice mission at the end of 2025, which essentially acted as a full-on dress rehearsal for choking off the island's ports. Beyond those major headline-grabbing exercises, though, Taiwanese officials document a banal but relentless daily pattern. We are talking countless daily incursions, Coast Guard standoffs stretching way up into the South China Sea, and constant airspace violations. This is a deliberate strategy of gray zone coercion. It's designed to slowly normalize China's aggressive, tightening grip without technically crossing the line into starting a war. Which brings us to part 3. The broken nest strategy, Taiwan's scorched earth deterrent. Okay, so to counter this mounting pressure, military scholars are debating extreme measures that honestly sound like they belong in a Cold War spy thriller. Specifically, a highly controversial document from the U.S. Army War College proposes an unthinkable self-destruct option called the broken nest strategy. This involves threatening to purposefully obliterate TSMC's manufacturing facilities the exact moment a Chinese invasion begins. The logic here is brutal but perfectly clear. Make the island so economically toxic to conquer that Beijing's military confidence is completely neutralized by the promise of their own technological ruin. Remember, China deeply relies on these very same chips for their own AI and military modernization goals. If they take the island under this strategy, they get nothing but broken glass and ruined clean rooms.
Part 4, the global economic shockwave, the domino effect.
Let's put this into a perspective we've all lived through. If you thought the 2021 pandemic chip shortage was bad, when car factories shut down globally and electronics prices just skyrocketed, losing Taiwan would dwarf that entirely. We aren't talking about a temporary supply chain hiccup here. We're talking about severing the supply of over 90% of the world's most advanced chips overnight, with absolutely zero backups on the planet. The immediate reality of that shockwave? We're literally talking about empty car lots in Detroit, halted data centers in Silicon Valley, and total paralysis for companies like NVIDIA and OpenAI. The conflict would sever some of the busiest global shipping lanes on Earth. It's actually so severe that behind the scenes, intelligence communities are debating an emergency semiconductor operation paperclip, a desperate last-ditch backup plan to evacuate tens of thousands of specialized Taiwanese engineers before the factories fall. All right, part 5, 3 futures, how the standoff might actually end. When mapping out the potential climax to this incredibly tense standoff, a full D-Day-style amphibious invasion, the nightmare scenario with massive casualties and nuclear escalation risks, is technically assessed as the least likely. However, an escalating blockade, one that tests international resolve, severs critical shipping, and chokes off the world's tech economy without firing a direct shot, is a highly probable threat we have to watch closely. The most likely scenario, though, that remains a permanent, exhausting gray zone of daily tension.
So, this is the defining reality of the late 2020s. The chips keep coming off the line in Hsinchu, the warships keep circling in the strait, and the entire global economy just holds its collective breath, relying entirely on this incredibly fragile equilibrium to hold together day after day.
Which leaves us with one final, terrifying thought to ponder. When the very engine of the modern world sits squarely on the fault line of 2 nuclear-armed superpowers, is a catastrophic collision simply inevitable, or will the silicon shield hold? Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Keep your eyes on the horizon.